Well, hello, good evening, and welcome to our Sunday night's broadcast. This is going to be a little bit different from the last broadcasts, the last few broadcasts that we've done, as tonight it's just me. And for those of you who've been following this, you'll know that in our first broadcast, I said that this was kind of experimental. Well, tonight I'm going to be reasonably experimental. I'm going to cover a subject which I'm very interested in, and a lot of the top income, in fact, not a lot, I think all of the top income achievers are very interested in. And it's a skill that often lies hidden within us. And sometimes it has to be winkled out. It's very true to say that you can achieve success in this business by mastering, well, basically three skills. One is finding prospects. Two is presenting. And three is teaching to teach. And we've already covered this in some depth, I think, in our first few broadcasts. So if you haven't seen those yet, then it'd be a good time after this one is finished to review that process. But if you take those three skills and couple them with high levels of activity, and I have to emphasize that, I guarantee that you will achieve success. But what if you want to do it big? What if you want to do it huge or even massive? The fourth skill that I'd like to discuss is practiced by every single 6 and 7 income earner that Dan and I have met all over the world. And I think that's without exception. It's been said that you can earn a living with a good education, but to become wealthy, you need self-education. In other words, these sort of people, and hopefully you, have worked harder on themselves than they do on their job or their business. Rarely, as somebody else said, does income exceed personal development. Now, this fourth skill doesn't mean you replace the three skills that I've already mentioned. You have to sort of blend this one into your daily method of operation. But the benefit of mastering this skill is that you will eliminate entirely procrastination. Isn't that something? You'll become a master of time planning. You will naturally become more disciplined. You become more focused on the important issues in your life. You become a better problem solver, an effective communicator, and over time, you'll become accomplished in everything that you do. Everything. So, does that sound good? See, we human beings are somewhat unique in the animal kingdom. We have the gift of choice. And one of my favorite ancient stories is that of a deeply religious person visiting a beautiful garden. And whilst this person was walking around the garden, he came across the gardener. And he complimented the gardener on the layout and the design and the planting and the colors. And then he said, but if it wasn't for God, there would be no garden. Now the gardener, to be fair, got his point straight away. And he said, yeah, if it wasn't for the miracle of the sun, the seed, the soil, the wind, the rain, absolutely, there would be no garden. But he said, you should have seen this piece of land when God just had it to himself. Now, if you give a piece of uncultured land to a dog, you're going to end up with weeds. Why? Because it's a dog. As far as I'm aware, dogs are not terribly well known for their creativity. But we humans can do amazing things. We can turn pennies into fortunes. But we're held back, mostly by our own self-limitations. And I think that starts when you're a child. Mum and dad say to you, don't do that. Now, normally, don't do that and don't do this is for your own protection. I mean, when you're 5 and 6, 10 or 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 even, don't talk to strangers might be some good advice. Now, when you're our business, things change. However, self-limitations do start with childhood, with don't do this and don't do that, usually for safety. But it can become serious as you get older. To give you a personal example, Diana will be the first to tell you that I am extremely poor at mathematics. I can't carry figures in my head. I'm really, really bad at it. I've never been able to balance my own checkbook. I just fail at it miserably. I now have somebody do that for me. And I solved my mathematic inability by marrying a mathematician. But to give you an idea how that worked for me, when I was at school, I was always at the bottom of the mathematics class. I could never get anywhere with it. And my mathematics teacher told me straight, he said, you're never going to be any good at this. And I believed it. Anyway, one year, this particular mathematics teacher disappeared. He broke his leg or something, I can't remember. And we had a different mathematics teacher come in to replace him for a year, a chap called Dr. Wilson. I remember he was from New Zealand. And Dr. Wilson made the subject interesting to me, and I went from bottom to being second. And then the original maths teacher returned, and I went from second to bottom. And I had to explain that to the headmaster. Interesting conversation. But I've never been good at maths since. I think computer engineers have a phrase for it, GIGO, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. And I think it's how we program our minds that really can make things a bit difficult for everybody. So we're going to start out on this adventure together. And what I want to do is get to a point where we banish all self-limitations. It's a big task. And to be fair, we're not going to cover it in 30 minutes. Now, it doesn't mean I'm going to be banging on this about in future broadcasts. I'm not. Okay. Here's my proposal. I'm going to set it up today. I'm going to give you some exercises. I'm going to follow up with this with some video material, maybe 2, possibly 3 video segments for you to watch and review to carry the subject on, because I'm aware that we just can't do this in 30 minutes. It would be impossible. So I hope that you'll bear with this, and I hope by now you'll have realized that a little later on, at least, you will need to take notes. The vast majority of people drift through life without any sense of direction. Because you joined this business, that indicates to me that you want things to change. And for things to change, you've probably heard it before, but you have to change too, a bit. Not radically, but a bit. You have to change our thinking a little bit. And if you look at any of the really top achievers in the industry worldwide, you'll find that at some point in their career, they sat down and really thought about what they wanted to get out of their business, what they wanted to get out of life. They started to design their own life. Quite amazing, isn't it? And most people they'll spend more time planning their annual holiday than planning the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years of their life. Let me tell you what happened to me, if I can make this a bit simpler for you and a bit easier for me to tell the story. 30 years ago, and I was I joined the industry, and I started, building it, and I was doing okay. I got the hang of finding prospects, presenting, teaching to teach. And it was all right. I wasn't doing mega, but I was doing okay. And I went to this seminar and in London, and this chap got on the stage, and he just introduced himself and said, "Right now, you have exactly what you want." Well, I could have hit him. You see, at that time, I didn't have what I wanted. I was in a place that wasn't mega. I had a business that was losing money. It was failing. And I was unsure of what direction I needed to take. My personal life wasn't doing too well either. So when this chap said, "Right now, you have exactly what you want," I couldn't have disagreed with him more. If I'd been braver, I could have probably got out of my seat and hit him. But I'm too polite, probably, to do stuff like that. And he then started talking about goal setting. Now, I have to admit, my eyes glazed over. All the stuff went in one ear and out the other, and I paid no attention to it at all. And so for a short period afterwards, I was just rubbing along, drifting along, no real sense of direction, no real sense of purpose, just that I wanted to make more money, really to sort of prop up what I was doing financially, keep my head above water. But you don't really leap out of bed first thing in the morning, do you, saying, "Oh boy, another chance to pay the lousy bills. Make some money, let's pay the lousy bills." It's not particularly an inspiring way of life. And I read a book. It was called The Magic of Thinking Big by Schwartz. You can still get it from Knowledge is King, I think, certainly from Amazon. It's about a fiver. It's not big money. And then in that business, I was fortunate enough to do some volume, and I went to a weekend seminar hosted by a chap called Jim Rohn. And that was a turning point for me in my life, because I really got hold of some of his concepts that became my concepts and became my ideas and my teaching. And I started doing what he asked me to do, to set some goals. The interesting thing is that stuff started to happen. I started achieving. I also had a major reason. I'd met Diana, and she was an impact upon my life, major goal, how to live with Diana. And I remember very well sitting, we were in America together, we were sitting under the boardwalk in St. Petersburg in Florida. And I had a journal. Mr. Rohn got me into keeping a journal properly. And writing out my goals in this journal. Diana thought I was a little bit crazy. She looked at me as if I was really crazy, but she humored me. And the interesting thing was, we started to write down and describe the first house that we would get together. Several months later, when we got together and we started making money, we went house hunting. And we walked into this particular house, and it was straight out of the description that I'd written in our journal. Isn't that a little weird? But it gets weirder. when we moved into that house, things started settling down and all the rest of it. We're driving our business. We've been setting some goals and all the rest of it. And those early days, we didn't have very much money to spare. And I remember Diana, we're very visual people, cutting out a picture of a pair of shoes that she wanted from some catalogue or other, sticking it on the fridge door with a magnet. And I was into this visual creation, and I remember cutting out a picture of a tripod and sticking that on the fridge door. And lo and behold, later on, Diana got her shoes, just a few weeks, and I got a tripod, which pleased me no end. I've actually now got quite a lot of tripods because I've got to think about it, and I really need to take that picture down. Another thing that happened to us, again, really weird, was that we always admired a house, a particular house. And Diana one day said, take a photograph of this house. And we put it on our board and we wrote a goal out. And we ended up living in that house. In fact, I'm speaking to you from it now in Sale in Cheshire. And that house never came on the market. But yet we managed to buy it, but it never came on the market. Isn't that interesting? Now, I don't understand how this stuff works. I just know that it works. But I'm going to give you some pointers. And everybody needs some things to happen in their life. Everybody needs about 4 things, I think. Number 1 is they need to be loved. They need to be loved, and they need to love. That's number 1. Everybody needs to have stuff. Now, you can be really mercenary, or not so mercenary, but everybody wants some sort of stuff at the end of the day. And everybody has the inner desire to become something. And finally, one of the most important things is to have to share. So I've got some questions for you, and this is where I need you to start scribbling some notes. And I need you to start thinking about this. So my first question is to you. What do you want to become? So let's write that down in our notes. What do you want to become? Now, better father, better mother, better parent, better public speaker. The first time that I stood up at a business presentation because my sponsor told me that I was doing it, and I didn't believe him, and they just went to the front of the room and said, "Tonight, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have a brand new person for you, Clive Leach, who's going to present the opportunity." And I stood up and my brain sat down. And by the time I finished, I was sweating. I was feeling very sick, awful. But I determined to become a better speaker. And I set about doing that. Second question for you. Where do you want to visit? Where do you want to go in the world? Diane and I have been privileged that we have ticked off some of our goals. I've snorkeled over the Great Barrier Reef. We have circumnavigated the coast of Australia in one of the finest ships in the world, the Silver Whisper. We have been to lots of different countries and traveled extensively. We now, as some of you already know, have a vacation home in Southwest Florida, where we spend, some time. So where do you want to visit? What would do it for you? What do you want to have? Question number 3. What do you want to have? A library? A car? A home? Be out of debt? What do you want? And finally, question 4, what would you like to share? Sharing is important. Sharing with a loved one, sharing with people less fortunate than you, sharing with your friends. It doesn't have to be money. It's just going to be good times, your time, personal time. That can be a great gift. You can always replace money, but you can never replace time. So here's what I want you to do. This is where we're going to get to the exercise bit. And after I've gone through this exercise bit, if you have any questions about it, just pop them in the questions and answers application which you have on your screen, and I'll do my best to cover them if we have any. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to start making a list to answer the questions that we've listed. We've just listed the 4 questions. What do I want to become? Where do I want to visit? What do I want to have? What do I want to share? That type of thing. So I want you to think like a child, and this is the key to it. You see, that we get older, and what happens when we get older, all these self-limitations come in, and it stops us thinking, it stops us believing that we can do stuff. And I want you to start thinking like a child, and it doesn't matter right now whether you put some crazy stuff on your list or not. The important thing is just to write out your list. And I want you to make the list as long as you possibly can. To think like a child. If you gave a kiddie a school exercise book, let's say the child is 7, 8, 9 years of age, and you give them a school exercise book and say, what do you want for Christmas? Just give me a list. They'll fill that book up. Double size print on either sides of the paper. They'll just go and go and go and go and go and go and go. And I want you to do the same. So if we just, as an example, concentrate on what do I want to have? It could be a tripod, pair of shoes, handbag, going out for lunch at a splendid restaurant with your loved ones, could be a trip, could be some sort of vacation, could be a car, could be a home, could be, you decide. Just make that list as long as you possibly can. Now, what do you do with the list? In each of these categories, these questions I have, we operate in the same way. We look down the list and you start writing down, well, I could maybe get that in 6 months or a year. So 6 for 6 months, just write it by the side of the idea. You don't have to be terribly descriptive right now. If you want a car, just put down, car. We'll talk about the description a little later on, but let's just put the word car down, and the length of time you think is going to take you to get to that. And then, some of these goals will be a 6 months goal, some will be a 1 year goal. So put 1 by the side of the 1 year goals. And then some are going to be 2 year goals. So put 2 by those goals. Some will be 5 year goals. Okay. And maybe you should have 1 or perhaps 2 10-year goals, something big, way out in the future. But a long list. And now what we're going to do is we're going to decide what's a real goal and what's merely a whim or a wish. So what I'd like you to do now is, having written that list up, is select 1 10-year goal. I'd like you to select 1 5-year goal. I'd like you to select 3 2-year goals, 2 1-year goals, and 1 6-month goal. Got that? Good. So now what I want you to do now is I want you to look at each of those goals and select. Let's talk about the 10-year goal. What I want you to do is look at the 10-year goal and write down a short paragraph in your notebook or your journal 2 or 3 sentences about why you must have it, why you've got to get whatever it is. And you need to also write in this paragraph how it will make you feel once you've attained this goal. You must also write how it impacts upon your family, your loved ones, your perception of yourself in your social peer group. You need to write this out in a paragraph. Just 3, 4, half a dozen sentences about why you must get that. And then do the same with the 5-year items, 2-year items, 1-year items, 6 months items. So we've got these paragraphs. Writing the paragraphs is where you talk yourself into it or you talk yourself out of it. It's where you decide it's a wish, a whim, or a real goal. Now, this is what you do next. Let's pretend that one of the items is, what should we say? Let's say it's a house, okay? And you've written the paragraph about the house. Now you need to describe the house. How many bedrooms? How many bathrooms? How many reception rooms? Family lounge? Formal lounge? Dining room? Conservatory? Kitchen with or without a diner? What's it going to look like? What's the garden going to be? How big is it? So when you've decided that, okay, you then need to write a sentence in your journal and set a time frame of when we're going to achieve this. And you need to write this in the future present tense. So an example, it might read something like this. It's now June of 2015, and we have just moved in to our new home, which is a detached house with 5 bedrooms, a study, a hobby room, a kitchen with a dining area, a separate dining room, a formal lounge, and a family lounge. We also have a gymnasium attached to it, and we have a great garden. And in the garden, I've just got somebody building a parrot house for our grandchildren. And it's now June 2015. So you write it in the future present tense. Now, I'm not one of those people that say you need to put this on 5x4 cards and read it every day. I think that's just nonsense. The fact that you write it down and refer to it every now and then will keep you going. It'll carry you through when you get a few no's, a bit of rejection, that sort of stuff. Because we're all grown up, that's what happens, isn't it? But this sort of stuff gives you the reasons why you're doing this, more than just making the money to pay the lousy bills, because that's not truly inspiring. That's a discipline that we have to do. We have to become financially free to get to the good stuff. But there we go. So my time's nearly up tonight, and I've got a question here from select. Who's this from? I've got a question here. It says it's from me. It can't be. I don't know how that's happened, but anyway, the question is: how do you pick yourself up if you miss a goal? For example, if you miss the holiday promotion. Well, you should always have another goal lined up before you complete the first task. I remember, now Dan has just walked in the room. You can see her reflection in the mirror behind me. And she said, that question was from me. Oh, God. Anyway, it's a good question. So how do you pick yourself up? You should always have another goal in the offing. Okay, you should really do that. As an example, I remember a while back now attending a dinner in America, and one of the astronauts was actually talking, at dinner. Absolutely fascinating guy, and he was saying that before they went to the moon, they were already working on a project for when they got back. Because, you know, once you've been to the moon, where else do you go? So it's very important that you have a series of goals. So if you miss one, okay, you know, you might have missed a holiday promotion, but hell, it's not the end of the world, is it? Particularly if you're working to buy a new home, get out of debt, you know, something that's big, something that's huge, something that's massive, because that will drive you into the activity that you need to do. I want some very nice compliments. Thank you. Visualizing what you want in the future. The books are read, it works. Clive is dead right. Okay. What is your next goal? When and how to achieve it? Okay. How do I know what a real goal is or a wish is? Let's look at this one. How do I know what a real goal is and a real wish is? Okay. A real goal, it's from Diana again. A real goal is when you write the paragraph down in your journal. Okay, and you look at it, and that's when you decide that, nah, that's just nonsense, or, oh, yeah, I can really relate to that. That's why you write the paragraph in the goal. Now, let's see if I can find a question from somebody else other than Diana. I've got up to. We're going to look at a big goal like a house. I just can't. I've got somebody else here saying, I would like it. I would find it hard to set a big goal like a house. I just can't visualize it. Okay, well, set some smaller ones. Instead of a house, a car. Instead of a car, a holiday. Instead of a holiday, paying the damn credit card bill. But you need to have some bigger stuff as well. That's what drives you. Dream like a child. Think like a child. Now, oh, I've got some people have been very nice to me. Thank you all very much indeed for the compliments I'm getting. Whoa, makes me feel good. But in closing, because I'm running out of time, here's the plan. I'm going to flesh this out in more detail. I'm going to make a couple of 15-minute videos. I can probably do it in 2, maybe 3 tops. And as soon as they're ready, you know, I'll post them up on the Facebook resource page. You can see the banner in front of you, facebook.com/Leach Ross. So it'll be a continuation of this. But the exercise I've just given you, that 6 months, 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10-year thing, that's key that you start doing that now. And it's key you start writing that now, okay, and start working on it, because it will drive your activity. It will make you a better planner. I don't understand how it works. I just know that it works. So you just please give it a go. Here's my challenge for you. Do it for 90 days. Just 3 months, 90 days. If you just do it for the next 90 days, you'll do it for life. So, in closing, I just want to give you some heads up, some exciting things happening in the offing. The first thing is next Sunday, there will be no live broadcast. I know, I'm sorry. But we've got some logistical issues and we just won't be able to do it. However, on the 12th of October, so it's 2 weeks today, we've got a brilliant guest speaker for you. We've got National Group Leader Robin Brooks here. And when I say here, he's not going to be with me because I'm actually going to be in Florida and he's going to be in the UK at that particular time. But Robin will have just come back from an event in Las Vegas, a breakthrough event, personal coaching with Eric Warwick. So I'm sure he's going to have a lot to talk about and a lot of information to share. So that's going to be really worth tuning in for 7 o'clock on the 12th of October. A couple of other things are going to happen too. You know, we're getting close to the kickoff season in January, the seminars. And here's the thing that you need to think about these seminars. You know, you need to be going to them, number one, but more importantly, you need to be having people there with you. Now, if you're brand new and you haven't got a team yet, you haven't started recruiting, go and start recruiting and get some people to these events, because the size of your income will be determined by the number of people that you get to these events. And there's a bunch of events happening all over the country. 3 that we will be going to is Sunday the 11th January. That's Steph Long was Impact Seminar at the Armitage Centre in Manchester. Saturday the 10th of January, that's Robin and Cal Brooks' seminar, the FAB seminar in Oswestry in Shropshire. Well, the one I want to really talk to you about is the one in Exeter on the 24th of January. And the reason why I want to talk to you about this one, apart from we're going to be speaking there, that's me, Diana, David, Robin, and a bunch of other great people, is it's the very, 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 very first one in the southwest of England. So if you have a team member down there, you really need to get good at this, and there'll be links for you to book all these seminars on this Facebook side of ours, facebook.com/Leach later tonight. But the Southwest one is an opportunity not just to get your team who are in the area there, but for you to start building a business. So who do you know in the southwest of England, within a couple of hours drive of Exeter? Because that's could be really, really interesting for your future business. So if you don't know anybody, ask your team. If they don't know anybody, ask everybody you know. Do you know anybody who lives in Devon and Cornwall and southwest of England? And they're going to say, why? Well, then you turn. We're just opening up down there. We're just getting going down there. We're looking for some good people. Doing what? Well, if I sent you a link to a 2.5-minute video, would you watch it? You know the score. You've seen it in the previous broadcast, how to handle that conversation. Have some fun with it. Book these events. Don't forget the southwest of England. Could be exciting. Let's go for this. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to have a quick look to make sure that I haven't missed anything that... I've got a quick question here from Bill Johnson. Could you recommend a book to learn how to become a better visionary? I think I've already mentioned it, Bill. The one that did it for me was The Magic of Thinking Big by Schwartz. I think his name is David J. Schwartz. S-C-H-W-A-R-T-Z, I think. Look it up at Amazon Knowledge of King, they'll have it. That was the one that did it for me. How do you get past people who always procrastinate? This is a question from Giles Paula. How do you get past people who always procrastinate? I just say to him, is this going to be how you live your life forever? Is this what you want, just to be where you are? Because if you want things to change, you have to change. But we also have to understand that some people never will, unless they get a vision of who they can become, how they want to live. Unless they start to design a life, it's not going to happen. So I think, I've just given somebody goosebumps. Oh, no, that's nice. So really, thank you very much indeed for the compliments. Thank you very much for that. I'm going to finish now because I'm conscious that you might want to listen to the conference call a little later on. But I'm going to continue this. I'm going to put a couple of videos up, probably in the next week, 10 days. I'll try and do it this next week if I can. And it'll be posted on the Facebook site. If you're interested in exploring this subject in much more detail, I would like to know. You can message me through this Facebook site. And if I get enough people saying that you're really interested in exploring this, I might even start a specialist goal-setting group on Facebook. But I need a bunch of people ready to make that worthwhile. So if you have been, thank you very much indeed for watching. We're looking forward to broadcast again on the 12th of October with Robin Brooks, National Group Leader. That'll be an absolute cracker. And don't forget the events. So if you have been, thanks very much for listening. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.